Today we're going to kind of go over how we set up the EVD drains here in the emergency department. And I'll kind of preface this by saying that this is a really technical skill. You kind of have to think your way through it. The good news is if you ever get to a spot where you're hung up with this, you can call ICU. A lot of times they have a nurse that can send down to help us get it set up. Other thing too is the neurosurgeons are really good about helping us troubleshoot them, but I want you to kind of have a basic understanding of what supplies you need and how to try to get this set up and primed and ready to go. So there's a couple things you'll need to grab. All of this is in our supply room. You'll need an actual EVD kit, and it will come like this in the supply room. It's a big, long, white box. And that's what's going to contain this inside of it. So if you open this, this is in here. In addition to this, there's a really narrow drain that this comes with. The neurosurgeons now have been asking for the wider French one, so it's a little bit bigger. We should be keeping these in our supply room. This is what it looks like though. It's just another kind of narrow, long, white box. If we don't have the wider ones in our supply room, we can also get these from Central Supply, and they'll send these down to us or have someone run it down to us. The other thing that you're going to need to get is a cranial access kit. From a nursing standpoint, there's nothing that you have to do with this other than make sure it's available and at the bedside for the neurosurgeon. This is what's going to have the drill and the scalpel and everything else that they need to kind of go ahead and get that access in order to put the drain in. You'll need a transducer cable, just like you would use for an arc line, and a couple flushes too. So to actually get this set up, you'll go ahead and just open up your kit. And you need an IV pole to hang this on. You can do it on the side of the bed as well, but I'm going to kind of set it up here so I can try to rotate it the right way for everyone to see. And this is how it's going to come inside the kit. This one's been opened up before, so it's kind of gently used. But the other thing you'll need to go ahead and do before you get this primed is you need to kind of deconstruct this because we need a couple different things from it. So the first thing that we need is the actual transducer cable itself. So we'll need just this piece of it. And then this also comes, as long as we're not using the vamp ones, these should be the ones that we supply down here, will also come with a second stopcock. And we need to go ahead and take that part off as well. So this is where you're going to kind of set up the rest of your stuff. And this is where you're also going to need a flush to kind of get this going. So before you start priming this, you'll notice down here, there's actually a drainage bag. What you need to make sure, it should come like this in the kit, but just double check. These slidey clamps need to be clamped off so that it's not draining. So what these are for is every hour, a lot of times we'll have you measure what's inside the Spiritrol, and then you'll open these clamps up so it can drain into this bag. But when you're first getting it set up, make sure everything is clamped. It's going to stay that way 99% of the time. This is going to be your line that goes to the patient. This will come with this sterile cap at the end of it, and it needs to remain sterile because this is the part that's actually going to hook up to the drain that's going into the patient's head. So to get this part set up, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. We'll send some pictures out of what this needs to look like once everything's set up, and then what it needs to look like to zero it and what it needs to look like to drain it versus getting just a pressure reading on your monitor. So we're going to go ahead and get this set up. So you're going to put in your stopcock here, and I'll kind of go over this a little bit more once I get this all kind of set down and everything. And I'll kind of explain why this is set up the way that it is. There's a particular way that ICU likes to have these set up, so we need to try to keep it consistent with how they're doing it. So what you'll end up having it look like ultimately at the end is you'll have this flush pointing downwards. The reason they like it like this is during transport, they don't want it poking straight out to the side here. That's why we have to use this other stopcock to get it set up to where the syringe is pointing down and it's not going to get bumped on things. It gets a little bit tricky and it's a little bit intimidating looking at all these stopcocks, but we'll kind of slowly go through everything. So this part here, once everything's set up, this will plug in to just a regular art line cable to your Philips monitor in the rooms. This is going to be how we get our readings for our pressure draining is through this, but we're not going to worry about this part just for now because what I want you to know is how to get this set up and prime primarily. So there's two pieces of this that we have to prime. We have to prime the part that goes to the patient, and then we have to prime up into the Spiritrol. So to kind of get everything set up and going here, I guess the other thing I should mention too is on these ends right here, the art lines will come set up with the little clear caps on them that have vents in them, you need to go ahead and change those over to these white caps that come in the kit that do not have a vent on them, because that's how you're going to want it to be set up ultimately. So it takes a little bit of kind of thinking to figure out what you're off to and what you're open to. So I like to go ahead and prime my patient line first. So this, you're going to leave this open to air, and what this is allowing is for you to flush past this up to this stopcock. You're also going to need this one open to here. So now we're open so the saline can go this way and then it can go this way. So we're going to close it to the drain itself, and what that's going to do is going to cut off flow going this way and open up flow to go to this way. You're going to prime this just like an art line. Sometimes it helps to have a second person to do this, because in order to prime it, you have to pull on this little plunger here. So when we're ready to prime this line, we're going to have off to air, and off to the drain itself. You'll pull this plunger, and then you're going to have to press this saline cap, and you're going to prime all of the air out of here until you get a nice strip at the end. And remember, this is going to have a sterile cap on it. It's not going to be open like this. So once this is primed, you're going to turn this drain off to the patient, and now you're going to prime up to here. And all you have to do is prime this line to where you get one single drip in the chamber. If you get more than one, it's okay, but you don't have to prime very much once you just see that drip. So you'll pull the plunger, and you're going to flush. To where you get a drip in the chamber, just like that. So now everything is primed and set up. That's really the hardest part about doing this, is remembering how to have all this set up and ready to go, and then getting two separate lines primed differently. The best way that I can tell you to try to remember this is 99% of the time, these two stopcocks right here are going to be turned off to air. So what that's going to do is allow your saline to flow up and over. We'll send some pictures out to kind of remind you once you're having to set one of these up in person. We'll try to get a little booklet or something handy as well. The next kind of thing I want to talk about is when they first set these up, a lot of times they're going to want to get a closed reading, which will just give you a pressure reading. So this has two functions on here. It can measure pressure, and it also acts as a drain. Those two things usually don't happen at the same time. So if you just need a pressure reading, so the drain part of it's not going to be open, you're going to, kind of the same way we set this up, these will stay the same. You're going to turn this off to the drain. So now you don't have anything flowing into this drain. When it's off to the drain, this will pick up a waveform, kind of like an art line. So you'll see kind of a nice little S pattern on your Philips monitor when you have this set up. That will give what they'll sometimes call a closed reading, meaning that the drain is closed. It's just going to be pressure. They usually do that just right when they first set it up, and then at that point, it's usually going to be just open to drain. So when it's open to drain, you need to have it open to both here. And this is actually going to prime the water out because it's not hooked up to the patient. So you'll have this part open right here. So this is allowing you to get a pressure reading, not the same as a closed pressure, and also it's going to allow this part to drain CSF into here. And that's really kind of the basic setup of this. There's a lot of things that you may potentially have to troubleshoot on here. So we can always call for help on that. The neurosurgeons can always kind of help too. They're really good about, if you can just get it set up and primed to this point and give them the supplies that they need, they're going to be able to kind of help walk you through on this. Once this is hooked up to the patient, you should never be flushing this anymore. Only the neurosurgeons can flush this line, and sometimes that will need to happen. Occasionally in this patient line, you can get like a little bit of brain matter or something that will clog this tubing. If that happens, just call your neurosurgeon, they'll come by and flush everything out for you, but we do not need to be doing that as a nurse. That's a neurosurgeon job. That's really about it.